Feels like I've been here all before. Radio humming, the world feels right. Every little thing's in tune tonight. Shadows fade, the truth comes through. Fresh start in the morning blue. Hey, now blue sky shining down. Let your feet don't touch the ground. Laugh it off, let the good times stay. Oh yeah, it's a blue sky day. Oh, coffee, steam, and a smile breaks free. Simple joys are enough for me. Stones roll out, but I don't mind. Sun's still waiting on the other side. Turn it up, feel the sound. Good vibrations all around. Hey, now blue sky shining down. Lift your feet, don't touch the ground. Laugh it off, let the good times stay. Oh yeah, it's a blue sky day. Wake up, sunlight tapping on the door. Feels like I've been here all before. Radio humming, the world feels right. Every little thing's in tune tonight. Shadows fade, the truth comes through. Fresh start in the morning blue. Hey now, blue sky shining down. Lift your feet, don't touch the ground. Laugh it off, let the good times stay. Oh yeah, it's a blue sky day.
Woo! Hey, good morning. You're listening to Conservative Cat. So do appreciate you being here. Let me know in the comments section. I was having a little bit of a hard time getting the tech monkeys out this morning. So let me know in the comment section if you can hear me all right, if you can see me okay. We've got to dig into a whole lot today, so I'm going to just jump right in if that's all right by you. Huge development out of Davos. Woke up at about 2 a.m. and I was scrolling through X, as you do. And I was shocked. I was kind of shocked. I thought Davos was going to go completely. I thought they were going to try to embarrass him. He agreed to a meeting in Davos. They talked about Greenland, and Trump announced a framework. So this isn't, from what I can understand, like a done deal, but it's kind of a done deal. But it's a framework for the Greenland deal. And Trump announced that he's going to drop those Euro tariffs. I would imagine that this is pretty much a done deal because he announced that he was going to drop those Euro tariffs. So this is huge. This is a big win for America, and I'll explain why. We also have to talk about Scott Bessent, the Treasury heavyweight Scott Bessent. He totally eviscerated Gavin Newsom at Davos in this takedown. He said that he looks like Patrick Bateman meets Sparkle Beach Ken. So Scott Bessent, his takedown, we're going to get to that. That's trending on X right now. People find it funny. Gavin Newsom actually took to X. I think he actually reposted. Somebody had made the Ken doll look like him exactly, like the gray hair and everything. But Sparkle Beach Ken looked like Gavin Newsom before. All they really did with this doll, it's an AI generated doll. They just put gray hair on him, and I'm like, wow, he really does look like Sparkle Beach Ken. So we're gonna get to that. Plus, Barron Trump. This is kind of fascinating news. I don't know what you guys think about it. Barron Trump, he kept his cool during this really dangerous moment, and he saved a woman's life, his friend's life. And I'm gonna get to that. This is sort of fascinating. And then a little bit later in the show, we will get to some Illinois news. Illinois, there's a new bill that's been introduced, and I don't know if you've caught the show. I've talked about this before. You can find it in the archives where DCFS kids go missing from DCFS, and we don't know the number of kids missing, like, kids that run away from their foster care parents. That number is out there, and it's estimated 193 for the year of 2025. But we don't even know if that number is completely accurate. So this bill that was introduced by State Senator Darby Hills, what it would do would be force DCFS to compile annually the numbers here of kids that run away, if they're recovered, what steps were taken to try to recover that child. Missing children, one's too many. Missing children in state care, one is too many. Hundreds is far too many. So we're going to be chatting about that a little bit later in the show. Probably around 7:30 is when I'm going to get to that story. So take note, come back if you got to go grab a cup of coffee, but get cozy because we are talking about the World Economic Forum. And I didn't think it was going to go as well as it did, but it went really well for President Donald Trump because he called out all the globalists to their faces. So lots of news came out of the World Economic Forum in Davos, Switzerland. So earlier this week, Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent, he absolutely roasted California Governor Gavin Newsom. He compared him to a Barbie doll, Ken doll. And then the Commerce Secretary, Howard Lutnick, he told all the global elites to their faces that they are failures and globalism is a failed policy. And Donald Trump also vowed to make home ownership great again in Davos. So one thing that Donald Trump has talked about, the 50-year mortgages, I hate that. That's a terrible idea. But he's talked about having your mortgage transfer over to a different, you buy a house, maybe it's a starter home, that mortgage could transfer over to a new mortgage, right? And he's talked about that. So we're going to get to all of that. Lots of things happening in Davos, but the biggest news that dropped yesterday, Wednesday afternoon, was this. The president announced that they have created a framework of a deal regarding Greenland. Okay, now this is the autonomous territory of Denmark. We talked about Greenland a lot yesterday. If you missed it, go find it. Greenland, they have not been treated well historically by Denmark. Okay, 78% of polling says that Greenlanders wanted to be a part of the United States. They want to be a U.S. territory. Denmark, from the 1950s to really late 70s, this isn't like, distant history. This is sort of modern history here. What they were doing, they were experimenting on the Greenland people. They took the Little Danes project. I explained what that was yesterday. And they were taking children from their homes and trying to really re-educate them through the Little Danes program, which was weird. They had sterilization programs where they were putting IUDs in women and girls without their knowledge or even consent. So that was an experiment. And then they did an experiment on psilocybin, LSD. Look this all up. Very fact checkable. Denmark, they took 400 mental patients and they tested on them like guinea pigs. They did eventually later compensate those mentally ill patients. Out of the 400, I think 151 of them were compensated, but they were tested like guinea pigs, and they were testing hallucinogenic drugs on mentally ill people in Greenland. So really sad. There's only 50,000 people population there right now. It is in the best interest of the Greenlanders. It is in the best interest of the United States, NATO, for the U.S. to come in and take over. Okay, the U.S. to control Greenland. And that's kind of what this deal does. It allows the U.S. to go in and control Greenland and have sovereignty over it essentially. So, and really what this is, it's to counter Russia and China, because Russia and China have been like sharks circling Greenland. They want it. So this is a breakthrough. This is a huge announcement. He also announced that he's not going through with the tariffs on the European countries that were scheduled to go into effect, I think like February 1st, early February. He was really peeved off, Donald Trump, after finding out that there were like 34 troops that were sent to Greenland after he said that, hey, I want to purchase Greenland. And then Denmark went to NATO and said, I think there were 8 or 7 countries that Denmark went to and said, hey, we really need your defense because there's possibly an invasion coming from the United States. Later, NATO said they provided those troops because they were worried about Russia. And I didn't believe that for a second. NATO is treasonous. But I mean, it stunned us all because you have the NATO guy coming out and saying that the U.S. acquiring Greenland is the best for NATO, and it's the best for NATO countries and the United States, and it's the best thing. So that shocked me. The president took to his favorite social media site, Truth Social, for the announcement. I'm going to break down what this deal looks like in very simple terms, but first we'll take a look at the president's Truth Social. I want to share that with you. But this is an incredible deal. It's better than the one that I think Trump was wanting. He truly has a unique talent for the art of the deal. Take a look at his Truth Social post. Here we go. Hold on here. There we go. Okay. So this is what he says. Based upon a very productive meeting that I had. Now, this is prior to, I think the deal being really, solidified. Not completely solidified, but pretty much. He came out and then announced that he wasn't going to do the tariffs. So he says, had a productive meeting with Secretary General of NATO, Mark Rutte. That's the top guy at NATO who says that this is the best thing for the United States to control Greenland. Mark Rutte, we have formed the framework of a future deal with respect to Greenland, and in fact, the entire Arctic region. The solution, if consummated, will be a great one for the United States of America and all NATO nations. Based upon this understanding, I will not be imposing the tariffs that were scheduled to go into effect on February. Additional discussions are being held concerning the Golden Dome. So that's his project, the Golden Dome, as it pertains to Greenland. Further information will be made available as discussions progress. Vice President J.D. Vance, Secretary Marco Rubio, Special Envoy Steve Witkoff, and various others as needed will be responsible for the negotiations going forward. So at this point, it's kind of out of Trump's hands, and he's like, it's a done deal. It sounds like it's a done deal. They'll report directly to me. Thank you for your attention on this matter. Thank you. Subscribe to the channel. You're listening to Conservative Cat. So the president took to his favorite social media site, announced that he wasn't going to tariff anybody. He was kind of peeved off at those handful of NATO nations that gave the troops. 34 troops. I mean, these are dog sleds, essentially, to Denmark. Denmark had requested it. They tried to cover it up, and they were like, oh, well, we were doing that because we were kind of worried about Russia. Like, give me a break. So here's what the deal is in very simple terms. Okay. Denmark has to keep paying the population of Greenland $600 million per year. Okay. So like I said, it's like a project. Greenland is a project of Denmark. That's the best way to think of it. So they pay $600 million per year. There's only 50,000 people there. So that's smaller than like Springfield, Illinois. Okay. So they have to keep paying, right? The U.S. gets complete control, sovereignty over the parts we want for U.S. military bases. So we basically get to use all the parts of Greenland that we want. And we get mineral rights. Now, I haven't dug into this. I don't know if that includes the gold. As I told you, and President Donald Trump and, the Trump administration, Marco Rubio, J.D. Vance, I'd imagine that they're going to have to kind of get cozy with some of these mining companies if they're not already cozy with China. Okay, so there's mining companies in there right now. Amarok, I think, is one, and they're mining this huge mine, and they're discovering more and more gold. So I hope that we get not just, your minerals, like, I don't know exactly what's in Greenland, probably like stuff for EV batteries, microchips, things like that. Chips, I'm sure that there's minerals there for that, but I want the gold because it is rich with gold. Greenland might as well be called Goldland. Okay, so I hope that we get those rights as well. That'd be pretty cool. I'd imagine it's a mineral rights deal that they're coming up with. I'd imagine, further discussions will be made here to where, maybe we squeeze that in. We get in cozy with one of those mining companies because China has been doing that. I'd imagine, hey, Greenland, Denmark, you're going to have to, make those introductions for us because we get the mineral rights. So we get sovereignty. We get to pretty much set up military bases wherever we want. We get the minerals, and Russia and China are not allowed in Greenland. So that's part of the deal. So these cozy little mining relationships that Russia has, or that China has kind of squeezed its way into with these mining companies, those I'd imagine are going to dissolve because China and Russia are not allowed in Greenland. And the cost to us, right, is $0. There was talk $700 billion that we were going to try to, purchase Greenland. Didn't come down to that. And in fact, we get more than Greenland. We get the entire Arctic. So that's really exciting. President Donald Trump has sent Russia and China into a panic. He confirmed that the deal not only includes Greenland, he made a deal with Europe. It doesn't include just Greenland. It includes the whole damn Arctic. Okay, so Trump is about to go down in the history books here as quashing and just completely obliterating our adversaries' Arctic influence. What influence they already had. Like I said, China cozied up to those mining companies. They had ports there. Those are no longer a thing. This is huge. This is huge. And this deal isn't just about Greenland. It's about the Arctic region. Trump wrote, he says, based on the very productive meeting that I had with Secretary General of NATO, Mark Rutte, we have formed a framework of a future deal with respect to Greenland and, in fact, the whole Arctic region. Let's take a listen here. This is President Donald Trump.
Of a deal. I think it's going to be a very good deal for the United States, also for them. And we're going to work together on something having to do with the Arctic as a whole, but also Greenland. And it has to do with the security, great security, strong security, and other things. The market, 600 points, getting back a lot of some of the nervousness we had in the last couple of days. The tariffs are off. Nothing happens on February 1st. No, we took that off because it looks like we have Pretty much the concept of a deal.
A deal of ownership, a deal...
Well, it's a little bit complex, but we'll explain it down the line. But the Secretary General of NATO and I and some other people were talking, and it's the kind of a deal that I wanted to be able to make.
Where does Denmark, did they weigh in on what they want, what they would agree to?
Well, I assume they did, because he very much represents, he's a strong leader. Mark, you know Mark Rutte. And he, I assume he's been speaking to them. He's been speaking to all of them.
Are mineral rights involved? Is ownership involved? Did the Golden Dome sway people?
I don't want to say yet, but...
The Golden Dome was very compelling today when you talked about that.
Yeah, the Golden Dome, and they're going to be involved in the Golden Dome. And they're going to be involved in mineral rights, and so are we.
It's not specific enough to know at this point how long this lasts, whether it's...
Forever.
Forever.
It'll be forever.
For Greenland at this point.
Yeah. Forever.
That's staggering.
That's better than a 99.
This is what, 2 hours after.
It's better than the Obama deal with the famous Iran nuclear deal with a 9-year deal. No, this is forever. This is a long term.
I love it. Yeah, man, he's just so confident. Now, I explained the deal to you. It's not confirmed. Okay, take this with a grain of salt. I'm not, I am doing as much research as I possibly can, and it looks like Denmark has agreed to, continue paying Greenland, the population of Greenland. Like I said, Greenland is a project of Denmark, so they've been paying that $600 million per year. It looks like the U.S. gets sovereignty over pretty much whatever parts that we want. And it looks like we're going to get this mineral rights. I don't know if that includes the gold. I also don't know for sure if Russia and China are going to be allowed to be doing business deals in Greenland. But I do know that it's probably going to cost us zero. And we do know that, and President Donald Trump confirmed that this deal is going to last forever. So huge. Now, I was shocked. I told you yesterday that I thought that they were going to try to make Donald Trump look like an idiot. And CNN tried to do that. They tried to say he said Iceland several times rather than Greenland, like he has dementia, blah, blah, blah. We'll get to Caitlin Collins from CNN. She interviewed Gavin Newsom, who honestly looked like he was on drugs, if you ask me. His eyes were darting around the room. He was kind of incoherent when he was asked questions at the World Economic Forum in Davos. But before we get to all of that, I do want to get to what stunned me, and really I think stunned the world. NATO's friendship with President Donald Trump. The Secretary General of NATO, top guy, said that Trump is right and that we must defend the Arctic from China and Russia, and the U.S. is the best nation to, set up camp in Greenland and defend the Arctic. So he says Trump is right. We have to do more there. We have to protect the Arctic against Russian and Chinese influence. Imagine that. Not on my bingo card. A lot of things have not been on my bingo card in 2026. Capturing Maduro, really, given a big old screw you to China in doing that. Capturing Maduro, taking over Venezuela, kind of pulling out the rug from China. They're manufacturing fentanyl. They're using South America. They're moving in on South America and setting up military bases in exchange for infrastructure. So they promise these poor countries in South America, they want to take over the Western Hemisphere or get close to the United States geographically. And they go into these South American countries. And then they say, oh, we're going to give you all kinds of infrastructure. Well, they can't pay. And they pretty much sell their souls to China. Okay, so the Venezuelan kidnapping of Maduro, huge. I was not on my bingo card. This wasn't on my bingo card. NATO actually saying that Trump was right. Take a listen.
Statements from me will not add anything here. And when it comes to the Arctic, I think President Trump is right. Other leaders in NATO are right. We need to defend the Arctic. We know that these sea lanes are opening up. We know that China and Russia are increasingly active in the Arctic. There are 8 countries bordering on the Arctic. 7 are a member of NATO. That's Finland and Sweden and Norway and Denmark, Iceland, Canada and the US. And there's only 1 country bordering on the Arctic outside NATO, and that's Russia. And I would argue there is a 9th country, which is China, which is increasingly active in the Arctic region. So President Trump and other leaders are right. We have to do more there. We have to protect the Arctic against Russian and Chinese influence. And that's exactly what NATO ambassadors decided to do in September. We are working on that, making sure that collectively will we defend the Arctic region.
Okay. So I do want to address this comment. Great comment, by the way. The entire Greenland thing was Trump trolling the world, and everybody lapped it up. The U.S. had military bases in Greenland for like 70 years. Yeah, I think it was in the 1950s Cold War. We set up some military bases to kind of monitor, and we set up radars to monitor Russia and the missiles, because they don't shoot them over the ocean. Okay, they'd shoot them over the Arctic. Okay, so we set up shop in Greenland, and we, during World War II, took Greenland because at the time Germany had taken over Denmark, and we took over Greenland in order for Germany not to advance into Greenland. So, I mean, we've had influence there in Greenland, and we've been a presence in Greenland for a long time. But this is so much more than that. And I encourage you to think about this deeper. I mean, if this deal includes, hey, China and Russia can't do business deals in Greenland anymore, and NATO has neglected, okay, we fund NATO. A huge portion of NATO is just funded by us, 70%. Okay, and I'll get to those numbers here in just a little bit. And since 1980, there's been a funding disparity, or a spending gap, where the U.S., since 1980 has spent $22 trillion more than all of these other nations a part of NATO. Okay, so that's been since 1980, and it's just completely imbalanced. But NATO has refused to take seriously the strategic position of Greenland and the Arctic, and they have refused to defend it. As Donald Trump said, Denmark has provided Greenland like a couple of dog sleds. So this is our chance to not just, be a presence in Greenland, but to take over the whole damn Arctic and put military bases everywhere, and to get China and Russia out of there, and to also, have the minerals that are in Greenland. So this is like way more than just being in Greenland. Like, you're totally right. Greenland, like, we've had military bases there. It's been pretty much ours. Presidents have tried to purchase it in the past because it just makes sense. That's why it was so hilarious when NATO was like, no, you can't have it. Like, it just makes sense for the United States to have it. And like, why are you telling us what to do, NATO? We are literally your whole existence. Okay. So, I wanted to address that comment. Great comment. 1950s, we set up, I think, a really prominent military. So we have bases there. And we've had them there for a long time. But this is bigger and better. So Europe, they are now going to avoid these steep tariffs that Trump had planned for these 8 countries, because he was really mad when he found out that Denmark went a-running to these 8 NATO countries and said, please send in troops because we're worried about an American invasion. And Trump was like, okay, you want to act like that? You don't want to come to a deal? Fine, I'm going to tariff the hell out of you. And then they started to like freak out a little bit. They were like, oh, please don't do that. He had threatened to levy tariffs on several European countries, saying that he would impose a 10% tariff on February 1st, and then it would increase to 25% on June 1st on Denmark, Norway, Sweden, France, Germany, the United Kingdom and the Netherlands and Finland. And he said that, until we come to a deal here on Greenland, and I get exactly what I want out of Greenland, the minerals, the extra military bases, the getting China and Russia out of there, until I get what I want, the tariff levy is just going to go higher and higher and higher. So he says, until such a time as a deal is reached for the complete and total purchase of Greenland. So it's even better than purchasing Greenland because we're not spending a penny on it. We were trying to buy it for like $700 billion. Stock markets, by the way, in the US immediately saw gains following this announcement that we have a deal where Greenland is ours completely, and we have, pretty much sovereignty over that region, not just Greenland, but also the Arctic region. So currently the Dow is up 1.5%. If this pans out, Trump will have proven again that he is truly, he has this unique talent for the art of the deal. I mean, he came out of there with way more than what he was expecting, I think. So here's a play-by-play. If you haven't been following along, Europe essentially said, Greenland's not for sale. Okay. And Trump goes, well, we'll pay $700 billion. Okay. And we'll provide $100,000 to each person in Greenland. 50,000 people there about. So Europe says, no, Greenland's not for sale. And we don't need the US in your defense. Okay. The US military is insane. We have the largest Air Force. The second largest is the Army Air Force. So, and I'll get to a clip. Carl Higbee from Newsmax really explains it well, but they're like, we don't need your defense. Okay, you do, because you got 2 dog sleds, man. Okay. We don't need the US, and Greenland's not for sale. So they dug their heels in after we offered a nice amount, $700 billion flipping dollars, and we were going to pay all the residents of Greenland, who probably hate Denmark, considering they've been tested on like little lab rats since the 1950s. And then NATO comes in and says, if you try to take Greenland, Europe, Denmark, they went to NATO and bitched and complained. And then NATO tells the United States, well, if you try to take Greenland, then you're out of the club. You're out of NATO. You're kicked out, US. And Trump, and this is the beauty of the art of the deal. If you've ever read the book, you have to know what your leverage is against the other party. Okay, Trump goes, okay, kick us out. We're going to take our 5% if he kick us out. And the U.S. is going to take over Greenland anyway, because you can't stop the U.S. military. Annually, what is it? Trillions of dollars we spend on the U.S. military. It's insane. Nobody can stop us. And you can't stop us with your 2 dog sleds. And you've neglected the defense of that region for years, despite non-NATO nations circling it like sharks. Okay, so in 2025, that 5%, in case you aren't aware, we committed to spend 5% of our GDP, gross domestic product, on defense by 2035, like increasing it from 2 to 5%. So like increasing our spending on NATO even more. Okay, so Europe and NATO, here's how the deal went. After Trump said, well, we'll take our 5%. You want to kick us out? That's totally cool. I don't care. We'll take our 5% and we'll leave, and then we'll take over Greenland anyway. Somewhat hostilely. Okay. Because we can. And Europe and NATO, they were like, well, Greenland's not for sale, but okay, don't do that. Don't stop giving us money. Don't leave NATO. Don't invade Greenland. You can use Greenland for whatever you need. That's essentially where we're at right now. And Trump said, okay, we're not going to purchase it now because you've pissed me off. So the $700 billion is off the table. I'm not going to purchase it now. And I'm taking Greenland and the entire Arctic region as well. Because you pissed me off. And then Europe and NATO, they were like, okay. Just have whatever you want. So, look, folks, the numbers don't lie. NATO, I've talked about this. There's an imbalance, okay? And NATO has been in a fiscal black hole for decades and would be nothing without the United States. I want to make this clear. NATO would not exist without the United States. NATO defense budgets surged from $380 billion to $610 billion in 1 year after that 5% GDP ultimatum, where we reached that at the last economic forum, World Economic Forum in Davos, Switzerland. We changed it to where the United States would be funding NATO even more. And just since then, in 1 year, they've gone from $380 billion in defense, for defense, and they went up to $610 billion. And what really pisses me off, and what pisses Donald Trump off, I'm sure, is that they didn't take any of that money and dedicate it towards a strategically located nation, or Greenland. Okay. They didn't protect this region, and now we've got sharks circling. So they didn't even take our money and use it wisely. So Greenland's strategic value is undeniable. Its location dominates Arctic shipping lanes, early warning systems, because, you can set up radar there, see, where the missiles are coming from, if from Russia or adversary. And this isn't land grabbing, okay? This was recognizing European decay. European stewardship was awful. They didn't protect Greenland the way they should have been doing. Denmark, their defense spending on Greenland was 0.7% of this $610 billion, I think. It was a very small percentage that they were dedicating to Greenland. And this is critical, okay? Strategically located. Russia wants it. China wants it. They knew Russia and China wanted it. They didn't secure critical infrastructure against Russia and China. They didn't secure defense spending like they should have to protect the Arctic region. And Donald Trump saw that, and that's why he wants it. That's why he wants the U.S. in there. So Carl Higbee kind of breaks it all down, and he does it really well on Newsmax. Take a listen.
But all those countries in yellow, all of them, they get money from us. We protect people. We secure international shipping channels and tons more. And all we're doing is asking for the custody of a block of ice that basically nobody lives on. We already spent more to defend it than the people who claim to own it, and we can shut that off too. This goes back to what I was saying the other night about the realignment of global politics. The rest of NATO, they're the worst. But we just wielded our standing in. America is 70% of the funding of NATO and 90% of its muscle. Case in point, you want to know what the biggest air force in the world is? It's the U.S. Air Force. You want to know what the second biggest air force in the world is? It's the U.S. Army. You want to you know what the third largest air force in the world is? Oh, that's right. It's the U.S. Navy. And the fourth is China, and the fifth is Russia. I don't see any other NATO countries on that list. Trump was like, okay, good luck, Europe. All I'm asking is that you give us custody of some land that we actually held in the past, and it's actually good for everybody's security. And by wielding that contribution, look at what Trump did. All these Europeans who have been getting this free ride were forced to confront the reality of a non-American NATO now, and they postured first.
Can Europe defend itself? My answer is unequivocally yes.
Without the Americans?
without the Americans. I mean,
How?
Liz, well, look.
But you're relying on them for these key elements. How would you do it at scale and at duration and at intensity?
With an assumption that the United States would cut off completely any kind of work.
Yeah.
Well, if we look at the defense composure of Europe by and large, and a country like Finland, so how do we do it? We have conscription.
Okay. I swear, after those words left their mouths, they were like, oops. Like, conscriptions? Some advisor was jumping up and down in the back like, what did you just say? This is unbelievable. Think about that. Good luck with that. Let's be honest. How do you think far-left European citizens will respond to a draft? The U.S. out of NATO is pretty much the end of Europe as we know it.
He loves the Constitution.
Okay, so that was Carl Higbie, and I thought he really broke it down nicely. And things are really heating up, or they were heated in Davos, Switzerland. I want to get to a few other things that happened outside of the Greenland announcement. Davos, Switzerland, really hot this week. It was actually, I always loathe this time of the World Economic Forum. I loathe this time of year where they're all there, the globalists, the elites. The elites gather at their upscale ski resort and they talk about global economy and geopolitics and technology like AI, right? They talk about climate change. And they turn around every single freaking year and they lecture you and I on these topics as if, they are subject matter experts and they're all, comfortable in their private jets and their gargantuan estates. They all come together and talk about climate change and technology. And, it's fun stuff every year. I usually dread it. This year, kind of cool because the Trump administration called out these globalist elites who talk about globalism and climate change. They called them all out to their faces. Hilarious. Really good stuff this year. And Team Trump, they're on the snowy grounds of Davos, Switzerland. And, things were really good this week. So speaking on a panel surrounded by world leaders and business titans who have long championed offshoring, cheap foreign labor, and borderless trade for the United States, Lutnick. So Lutnick is the Chamber of Commerce. Hold on, let me get his exact title here. Howard Lutnick, United States Secretary of Commerce. Okay. So that's who he is. And he was there in Davos, and he brought something different to this World Economic Forum than prior years. He said, look, we are unapologetically America first. We are pushing this agenda. And he really gave a solid setup prior to President Donald Trump's arrival. Lutnick did. President Donald Trump, he came, what was it, Wednesday? And then I think that Lutnick was there Tuesday. Here's what he said, Lutnick. He said, the Trump administration and myself, we are here to make a very clear point. Globalization has failed the West and the United States of America. Lutnick goes on. He says, it's a failed policy. It is what the World Economic has stood for, globalization. And it's export, offshore, far shore, finding the cheapest labor in the world, and saying that the world is a better place for all of this. That's what he talked about at the World Economic Forum, Lutnick. And Lutnick, what he's saying here is very simple. This globalization experiment has been sold to Americans, and guess what? It hasn't worked for them. It only works for the global elites. For decades, Americans were told that shipping jobs overseas would make everyone richer, prices would be cheaper, the world would be more peaceful. And that was the promise. But the reality is, here in America, factories closed, middle-class jobs vanished, communities hollowed out, and America became dependent on foreign supply chains from adversaries, that hate our guts and want to see us taken down, and will go as far as to manufacture drugs and get people to peddle those drugs into the United States to take us down from within. Okay, so we became dependent on foreign supply chains. And when Lutnick says globalization has failed the West, he means Western workers, paid the price while corporations, international institutions like the World Economic Forum benefited, these global elites benefited, and the American worker got left behind. And he criticized the World Economic Forum model, which is export American manufacturing, offshore jobs to the cheapest labor markets, far shore production, so it's out of reach of the U.S. American workers and our laws. So production is not subject to OSHA or child labor laws or anything like that. Nike goes and they go make tennis shoes and have little children making our tennis shoes for us, and we're reliant on that on that foreign supply chain. So, and all these World Economic Forum people, the people who gather in Davos every year, they try to pitch it to us as if we're better off for that, not domestically producing, not abiding by moral, just labor law here in the United States. And from his perspective, Lutnick, he's calling this belief a lie. The world is not a better place for this. And America shouldn't just exist to serve the global economy, and that's it should be a privilege. And these people don't treat it like a privilege to have the American consumer base. And that's basically all America is a consumer base for the global economy. And a nation who can't make its own goods, who doesn't produce anything domestically, is not truly sovereign. And we are at under the thumb of people who hate us. Okay. So prosperity starts at home, not in Davos boardrooms. So in short, globalization, didn't fail by accident. It failed because it's designed to benefit everyone except the American worker and the United States. So Secretary, the Lutnick, he opened up great. He called all the globalist elites out to their faces and said that globalization sucks. And we are America first. And I want to make that known. Then Trump comes in. And Secretary Scott Bessent actually took the stage and gave some remarks ahead of Trump's arrival. They really set the stage for President Donald Trump to come in. And Secretary Bessent took aim at California Governor Gavin Newsom, and it was glorious. Trending on X right now, Newsom, Ken doll, Sparkle, Barbie doll, or whatever it's called. And it's so funny. Scott Bessent, he says, quote, Newsom may be the only Californian who knows less about economics than Kamala Harris. Ouch. Let's watch Scott Bessent completely eviscerate Gavin Newsom at the World Economic Forum.
Very ironic that, Governor Newsom, who strikes me as Patrick Bateman meets Sparkle Beach Ken, may be the only Californian who knows less about economics than Kamala Harris. He's here this week with his billionaire sugar daddy, Alex Soros, and Davos is a perfect place for a man who, when everyone else was on lockdown, when he was having people arrested for going to church, he was having $1,000 a night meals at the French Laundry, and I'm sure the California people won't forget that. And I can tell my message to Governor Newsom is the Trump administration is coming to California. We are going to crack down on waste, fraud, and abuse. And I was told he was asked to give a speech on his signature policies, but he's not speaking because what have his economic policies brought? Outward migration from California, a gigantic budget deficit, the largest homeless population in America, and the poor folks in the Palisades who had their homes burned down. He is here hobnobbing with the global elite while his California citizens are still homeless. Shame on him. He is too smug, too self-absorbed, and too economically illiterate to know anything.
Thank you very much.
Let me know if you need any further clarification.
Incredible. I didn't mind the World Economic Forum this year. It's kind of funny to see these people called out by the Trump administration. So, you know, Bessent obviously had a lot of fun sticking it to the, I'd imagine, 2028 hopeful, who wants to be president, Governor Gavin Newsom. And really, Gavin Newsom is being described as the diva of Davos. Okay, so he's been kind of rubbing shoulders with deep-pocketed global elite, and he hopes that rubbing shoulders with these deep-pocketed global elite will get him installed in the White House. In case you were wondering, let me pull up what a Ken doll, the Sparkle Beach Ken doll, looks like, because I had to look this up. I didn't know. It looks so much like him. Now there's on X this picture of him, and I think it's actually in my thumbnail this morning. You can check it out, of like Gavin Newsom's face, artificial intelligence, like AI. Somebody put his face on the Ken doll. Really funny stuff. But you know, the original Ken doll, the original Sparkle Beach Ken doll, is dead on, spot on. I mean, what do you guys think? Take a look at this. Here it is, in case you were wondering. There he is. Gavin? Oh, wait, no. This is Sparkle Beach Barbie. Oh, it is spot on, folks, isn't it? Okay, so he was having fun, Scott Bessent. And he says, Patrick Bateman. So I don't know Patrick Bateman. I've never watched the novel, or I've never read the novel or watched the movie American Psycho. But I guess he's the main character. And Bateman is a polished and professional, but slick and narcissistic, empty, morally hollow psychopath who is utterly unhinged. Patrick Bateman. So I've never watched the movie or read the book. But the main character, that sounds like a pretty solid description of Governor Gavin Newsom. So Scott Bessent, spot on with his characterization here of Newsom. Now, I want to tell you about Gavin Newsom because he flew all the way to Davos, folks. And he must have not had a great week because he had to watch the world bend the knee to President Donald Trump. Okay, he sat there. He got dumped on by President Donald Trump. In his speech, he mentioned Governor Gavin Newsom. Donald Trump did. Scott Bessent dumped on him. The whole Trump team dumped on Gavin Newsom. And God only knows what, he had to do to Alex Soros while in Davos. He's obviously bumping shoulders with him, and global elite probably, to secure an installation into the White House. But he was told his speech got canceled. He was supposed to speak. He was told his speech got canceled. So him and Alex Soros bumping shoulders. God knows what he had to, do to get the money for his 2028 campaign. I'm speculating here. He hasn't announced, but he was told his speech was canceled, not having a good time. He flew home, from Davos, hearing the news that President Donald Trump got Greenland, and on top of that, got the entire Arctic region. So not a great week for the guy, right? And that might explain why Americans are now speculating that Gavin Newsom was on something. And this isn't me. This is, people speculating online. I'll let you watch it. You're entitled to your opinion. Newsom that he was on something. Okay, people are saying he was on something after Trump's speech because he wasn't able to speak coherently. Maybe he was drinking. I don't know. His eyes were darting all over the room. He got really angry at one point. Take a look, Caitlin Collins. And you'll notice here, Caitlin Collins was sitting here trying to make, Donald Trump look bad, like he had dementia because he referred to Greenland as Iceland a couple of times in his speech. Maybe, I don't know. But this is really good stuff. Take a look.
Named by President Trump during that speech. Yeah. What was your reaction to what he had to say about you?
None. I think he said something very different last night. I didn't hear new scum. I heard new green scam. But I mean, come on, it was remarkably boring. It was remarkably insignificant. He was never going to invade Greenland. It was never real. So that was always a fade. And so he says, well, we should negotiate. Well, everybody here has been willing to negotiate for a year. So it had fire and fury signified absolutely nothing. Even by Trump standards, I was rather curious. And there was boorish parts of it, but those were not even that consequential, including name-checking people he likes, people he didn't like. So, I was a little disappointed. It was a little nonplussed.
Did it stand out to you that he said Iceland multiple times when he was talking about Greenland?
And that every time a windmill turns, it costs $1,000. A lot of stuff stands out. None of this is normalized. There's a normalization of deviancy and consciousness and, comments and commentary. No other president, he's held to the curve. He's graded on a curve. I mean, it's really some jaw-dropping and remarkable statements that just, fly in the face of facts and evidence and common sense. So, but you've heard them over and over and over again. Again, for the European audience, that may have been a new speech. My God, there wasn't anything new about that speech for the American audience. The only thing that was new is he said he's willing to negotiate, but wait a sec, that's not new either, because EU's been saying we've wanted to negotiate for over a year.
You criticized world leaders when you got here, saying that some of these European leaders have capitulated to the president.
In the past.
You said you should have brought knee pads. What have you heard from them since then?
A lot. I heard a surprising number say, glad you made those comments. The exact opposite of what you might expect. They needed to hear those comments.
Pathetic. Okay, so you heard the knee pads comment. Okay, so yeah, the California governor, he said that people should have gotten knee pads and brought them to Davos because they are not standing strong against President Donald Trump at the World Economic Forum, European leaders. Look, Donald Trump called their bluff, right? That's why they're bending the knee to President Donald Trump, is because Trump said, okay, we're going to take our 5% and we're going to get out of NATO. And Europe was freaking out about that because we provide the world's defense. And, I love this comment. Somebody said, the NATO nations are getting money under the table from Russia and China to oppose the United States. Yeah, Russia, China, not a part of NATO, right? And it was odd when Denmark was like, Donald Trump bad. We don't want Donald Trump or the United States to have Greenland, which somebody pointed out beautifully that we pretty much had military bases in Greenland anyway. We're the best fit to defend Greenland. And, they ran to NATO and they said, can you bring troops in to defend against an invasion, right? And they were vague, but I mean, Denmark prime minister, Greenland prime minister, they were all like orange man bad. And Donald Trump looked at that and he said, you sent 34 troops to defend against an invasion against us. Like we're the guy that's funding your existence. Okay, we're the guy who's protecting you, and you're going to launch like this measly little 34 troops against us. And then NATO was like, no, we did that against Russia. And why not? Like at some point, the negligence, the lack of stewardship, okay, of these dollars, like I said, 380 billion to 610 billion in 1 year since we said, okay, we're going from 2% of our GDP to 5% of our GDP. Their defense budget, NATO has gone insane, astronomical. We fund 70% of it. So, like, they have been such bad stewards, you almost have to question, are they doing this out of a place of incompetency, or are they doing this out of a place of nefarious malfeasance? And are they secretly working with adversaries like Russia and China? Glad you brought that up, Bob, this morning. But Gavin Newsom has got to lose 2028. Okay, so I don't know about you, but his whole eyes darting around, he's kind of incoherent. Speaking with Caitlin Collins, I do want to shift gears. We are going to talk about Barron Trump this morning. Smash that like button, subscribe to the channel. I'm going to take a quick break, hit the subscribe button. But when we come back, we're going to talk about President Donald Trump's son, his very tall son, Barron Trump. And this is just sort of an interesting story. It's a very short story, but Barron doesn't spend a lot of time in the limelight. He's not famous and really doesn't spend a whole lot of time in media. But the light is shining on him today because there was some court testimony in London, and it revealed that he's kind of a hero. He helped a woman in desperate need, and he saved her life. Barron Trump. So we're going to talk about that here next. I think it's a fascinating story. I'll be right back.
Real strength doesn't need applause, and real faith doesn't flex for attention. Jesus said, when you fast, don't walk around looking miserable. Try to look holy. That's not devotion. That's performance. And God doesn't reward actors. Matthew 6, verses 16 through 18. Is Jesus calling men to fast in secret, where only the Father sees? Because fasting isn't about proving your discipline. It's about pursuing God with hunger. So real, you trade food for fire. You don't fast to earn points. You don't fast to make space. You weaken the flesh so the spirit gets louder. You say no to your cravings so you can say yes to something deeper. But here's the catch. It's got to be real. Not for your boys, not for social media, just you and God. In the quiet, in the dark. That's where rewards are born. In silence, in secret, in the furnace of unseen obedience. You want to be strong in public? Train in private. Fast without a stage. Pray without applause. Obey without a crowd. Your Father sees in secret, and He's the only one who reward what matters. Patriot Pump doesn't give you just energy. It keeps you focused. No fluff, no crash. Just clean, hard-driving fuel for men who train with purpose and sacrifice. If you're building discipline in the dark, this is your edge. Train hard, stay sharp.
Hey, smash that like button, share this out with your friends, subscribe to the channel. So do appreciate you being here. Patriot Pump Energy. Love this stuff. It's great. 150 milligrams of caffeine. We don't try to push a ton of caffeine into your body. It just doesn't work after so long. Like 300 milligrams is excessive. We pair this caffeine with a black pepper extract. You can read about the supplement facts on patriotpumpenergy.com. But that black pepper extract really makes the caffeine work for you. You can use promo code conservative cat It's the best promo code out there. $10 off at checkout. Go check it out. PatriotPumpEnergy.com. Barron Trump. Okay, so he's kind of a hero here. Court testimony in London has revealed that he helped a woman in desperate need, and he actually saved her life by calling the authorities on her abusive ex-boyfriend who was beating her up. Now, he was reportedly on a FaceTime call with this woman and heard sounds like she was being attacked. Okay, so he didn't call 911 because the woman was in England. So he figured out a way to call the emergency, the authorities there, 999. And it all happened on January 18th, 2025. So this was right before his father's inauguration. And this is news now because the court proceeding. So all of this is coming out now because of the court proceeding. And I guess the creep was like jealous of Barron. Sounds like. Now, I don't know if this girl and Barron have some sort of relationship together. But I mean, this is insane. Take a listen to this. Barron Trump spoke directly with a 999 operator, all recorded. And this is evidence in the court proceedings. You can hear the recording of not only the 911 operator call with Barron, but you can also hear the FaceTime recording. Okay, so Barron Trump spoke directly to the operator when he heard what he thought was Russian national Matevy Romanestev. I might have butchered his name, but I don't care. Kind of sounds like a scumbag. So this Russian guy, her ex-boyfriend, allegedly repeatedly punched Barron's friend, the woman, and she was in this apartment or whatever and was punching her. So this guy, the Russian guy, is 22 years old, and I guess he was jealous of the relationship that Barron had with this woman. Okay, with this woman who, you know, when the guy took her phone and dialed up Barron and he answered the phone, like he flew off the handle and flew into a rage. When he tried to phone her earlier that evening, the ex-boyfriend, the Russian guy, he flew into a rage and got really upset because she didn't answer, right? And then he answered a video call from the president's son on the woman's phone and, you know, showed Barron her face, you know, and grabbed this girl's hair. So I guess he called the president's son Barron. It gets complicated, but I think I'm following it. He dials her up, Barron answers, and he, you know, is flown into this rage, grabs the girl, throws her down, pushes her to the floor, and says, "You're not worth anything." Now that's according to some, you know, London reports, reporting from Snaresbrook Crown Court in Northeast London. Okay, so that's a reporting outlet. So the guy, the ex-boyfriend, kicked her while she was down on the ground, screamed vile names at her, and I hope that the British judicial system will have extremely harsh things to say about that. I hope that he's held to the highest, to the fullest extent of the law. Like, that's awful. Kicking a woman, screaming vile things at her. You know, I don't care if this girl was cheating, right? People cheat. It's not good, right? I don't think that's what's going on here, though. Barron doesn't strike me as the type. Most likely he's friendly with this girl. Maybe she feels a certain way about him, but maybe he doesn't feel the same way. I don't know. But Barron didn't just sit there, right? And he figured out a way to contact the British authorities, the emergency authorities, immediately, and reported the beating. And the victim, the woman, actually credits Barron with saving her life. Had he not called the authorities, had he just kind of sat there or said, "Not my problem," which a lot of young boys might do, you know, in that type of situation, he called the authorities and he saved her life, according to the victim, who is unnamed, by the way. I don't know who she is. So jurors heard the recording of the call in court. So this is 100% real. The FaceTime call, Barron told the operator in the operator phone call, which was recorded, she called me. So she called me, and then I picked up the phone expecting, a hello from my friend. But I saw the ceiling, and then I saw this guy, his head on the phone, and then I saw her and her crying and getting hit. So it sounds like the guy called up Barron Trump to just kind of beat on his ex-girlfriend in front of Barron. And the grateful friend said that if it wasn't for Barron's quick thinking, that it could have turned out really differently and much more tragically. Giving evidence, the woman said that Barron Trump helped save my life. She said that call was like a sign from God at that moment. So whatever provoked the guy to call Barron, that was like a sign of God, a sign from God or God intervening, because Barron would actually do something about the ex-boyfriend beating her up. So this guy has been charged with raping the woman on 2 occasions, assault, bodily harm, and perverting the course of justice. Doesn't sound like a nice guy. Barron is 19 years old, and that's a very tough situation to be in. It sounds like this is a friend of his. You're miles away from each other, different countries, continents. Okay, but he remained cool. And this is some nice work from a fine young man. And I'm just glad that Barron did the right thing. And he's kind of a hero for doing this. I thought this was a fascinating story. Most 19-year-old boys would be like, oh, it's her ex or it's her boyfriend, I'm not going to get involved. But he figured out how to call the authorities, spoke calmly to the authorities, and got her the help that probably saved her life. So great. Good work for Barron. All right, let's talk about Illinois now. Okay, I've got to talk about this bill that was recently introduced. Smash that like button, share this out with your friends, subscribe to the channel. We will take your comments towards the end of the program, coming up at 8 a.m. So in Illinois, there's a bill that's been introduced, and today we're talking about something that should stop every parent, every taxpayer, every lawmaker dead in their tracks. We are talking about missing children. I'm not talking about missing luggage. What was his name? Sam Britton, stealing ladies' luggage. Okay. I'm not talking about that. I'm not talking about missing paperwork. I'm not talking about missing funds. Okay. Money being frauded. All bad stuff. We're talking about missing children today. Okay. And should stop you in your tracks. Children taken into the care of the state of Illinois. Not just any children who are taken into the care of the state. When the government steps in and says that, hey, we know better than you, we're going to take custody of this child, and they assume the highest responsibility that there is, training up a child in the way he should go. And then they wind up missing under their watch, the state, and they can't even tell us how many missing children there are. This is not a paperwork problem. This is a moral crisis. And I'm glad that you've got lawmakers who at least are calling this out. I know they're in the super minority, might not get anywhere. I would be shocked if it doesn't get passed bipartisanly, because, I mean, come on. We're just asking DCFS to provide numbers of children who go missing. Children in the foster care system, we know, are vulnerable to running away. They're at risk for running away, and some of them go missing. Okay, or they're in foster care homes, because really, foster care has been exploited. You get money for taking in children. Okay. And there are some terrible foster parents out there. There's some good ones, but there are some terrible foster parents out there who exploit the system and use the money or use these children to get the money. And really, it's a moral crisis we've got on our hands. And those children, who get placed with terrible foster parents. And I'm not even saying that's all the fault of DCFS. They should be screening, going and doing the regular checks. Case workers should be doing check-ins on the foster parents and making sure that they're upstanding parents and outstanding parents, good citizens. But I get it. It's kind of designed to be exploited. I mean, you're paying foster parents with tax money to take care of children. I have always thought that this should be, and it used to be, under the purview of the church, where children who have rough circumstances, where the parents are the biological parents, leave that child's life or are not capable of taking care of that child, the church would get together and decide where that child goes, place that child with either an elder of the church, or put that child up for adoption immediately. There are plenty. A lot of people say like, "Oh, there's too many kids in the foster care system. There's not enough people who want to adopt." That's not true. Here in the state of Illinois, there are more people who want to adopt than there are children in the foster care system, by the way. So we don't have a paperwork problem here. This is a moral crisis. We have Senator Darby Hill. She's a Republican. She introduced a bill. It's called Senate Bill 2869. And frankly, the fact that this bill is even necessary should terrify you. And it should terrify you that perhaps Democrats won't vote for it. We'll have to see. I'd be shocked if they didn't vote for this. But DCFS, the Department of Children and Family Services, has to do something that should already be happening under this legislation. They would require DCFS to publicly account for every foster child who goes missing while under state care. And it happens. Children run away and they can't find them. And, foster parents neglect them and they don't know what where the children are, or foster parents pick up and move and they don't know where the foster child is. This happens. But it should be publicly accounted for, and, not internally, not with inconsistent data, but they should have a way of reporting this annually. How many children run away or go missing while in state care with foster parents. Okay. So starting June 1st, 2027, the bill stipulates that DCFS would have to submit a report to the General Assembly detailing how many foster youth were reported missing, how many were recovered, and how many are still missing. And I want to pause here because I know what you're wondering. Why is this necessary? And here's the part they don't want you thinking about. This bill didn't come out of nowhere. Okay. This came after months of investigations, reporting done by the Senator Square that revealed something very stunning. That at first, DCFS couldn't initially provide that number. How many kids went missing? How many kids ran away? How many were recovered? They couldn't initially provide that basic information about how many foster children go missing and had gone missing. Let me say that again. The agency responsible for protecting children did not know or could not produce at one point how many children had vanished in their care while in its care. Okay. While the children were in the agency's care. So after more digging, numbers start to emerge. FOIA requests placed, and then you find hundreds of missing foster children. Just in 2025 alone, 193. Wow. Senator Hills said something that should really shake you to your core. She's quoted in the Center Square. She says, if there's one child missing, that alarms me, let alone 193. And we don't even necessarily know if that's the most accurate number, because at first they couldn't produce this basic information. So Senator Hill puts it plainly. Policymakers can't fix what they don't know. Okay, 193, like, what is a good number? Obviously, one missing child is too many. But 193, that's when people have to start getting fired. That's when accountability has to, present itself. Like, and without reliable data, without knowing exactly how many kids are going missing every year, policymakers can't identify patterns. Heck, the agency, the oversight mechanisms within the agency, if they can't identify patterns, they can't figure out who to fire. They can't figure out, gaps in cares, what caseworkers aren't, following through, what caseworkers are not finding these foster parents who, aren't good to the children, lead the children to, and maybe the foster parents are great, but the child is, traumatized by not being with their biological parents and winds up running away from good foster parents. Like, we have to prevent this exorbitant amount of missing children in state care. Okay. And here's the truth is, if you don't have reliable data and you don't publish it publicly and you aren't holding yourself to account, like, you can't hold anybody responsible. Okay. So when asked, Hills, who should be accountable if children disappear from state care, she says, well, you'd have to see how they went missing, where they went missing from, to be able to find out why they went missing. And then you can, hold people accountable after that. For example, so say a caseworker, she does her, 2 visits a month or whatever through DCFS. And she's on it, and the foster parents are great and fantastic, and they're meeting all the milestones. And then all of a sudden, the teenager decides to run away. Okay, and nothing about these foster parents signaled to you that they were being abusive to the child that would warrant any kind of running away. And, the kid just runs away. Well, that's not the caseworker's fault. She was doing everything that she possibly could to, check in with the foster parents and to give the foster child a good life. It's just that sometimes kids go through trauma. Not having your biological parents takes a toll emotionally, mentally, and they could run away. Okay, for no reason at all, or for their reasons. And that's not the fault of the caseworker, but it would be the fault of, DCFS if they didn't do or take action to find that missing child after the fact, right? If they just said, oh, well, he's missing, then there'd be people to hold accountable there. But, say you had a caseworker who wasn't making her visits and neglected the child with foster parents who abused their foster children, and the foster children or child had ran away from the abusive foster parents. Well, that would be on the caseworker. You could hold her accountable for not making her visits and for not identifying this at-risk situation, right? So translation here, you can't investigate, you can't hold people accountable if you're not tracking it. Okay, if it's not tracked, it's not managed, right? So I want to talk about human trafficking because let's be real, a lot of these missing foster children, they are vulnerable population, runaways. They are the most vulnerable populations in this country to human trafficking, and it happens. So they don't have stable family connections. They'll run away. They don't have permanent homes, and predators know this. So Senator Hills raised the question, are these kids being trafficked? And are they being harmed. And that's the point of this bill. We want to make sure that they don't get themselves into a situation where they're extremely vulnerable and a predator knows that. And we're going to do everything we can to track and recover that child so that way they don't wind up in a human trafficking situation. If you lose track of children and somebody else finds them, it's not good. And we have to find these children. But first, we have to know how many children go missing and how bad of a problem is it at DCFS where children are running away. And does that say something about the broader culture at DCFS? And how can we correct it? Okay, so before the bureaucracy defenders get into my comment section and they're like, well, DCFS is stretched thin. Like, how are caseworkers? They're so overworked. How are they going to be able to track down all of the missing children and what kids run away from what homes? Yes, resources matter. And Senator Hills, she acknowledged that in the article. She supports additional training. We definitely shouldn't be having like interns or young. I'm sorry, but maybe even an age requirement on caseworkers. I'm sorry, but a 22-year-old caseworker is just not mature enough to handle the complexities of raising or children through state care. I mean, they're just not capable of it. Okay, they definitely need X amount of experience. So maybe being more selective with the type of caseworkers you hire, additional training, providing more training on how to identify at-risk youth, how to identify foster parents who are exploiting this system where they get money in exchange for taking care of children. Better coordination with law enforcement, including federal agencies. So all of these are steps that, they can take, and the resources matter. But look, there's a line. I don't care how understaffed you are. There is no excuse for losing children and then not tracking it. Okay, it's one thing to lose them. It's a whole nother thing not to know how many you're losing. And, we track the government, the state of Illinois. I know they track citizens obsessively. All the license plate cameras that they've installed. Okay, they know where you're driving. They regulate families aggressively. Highest property taxes in the nation. Like audits on taxpayers. If you try not paying your property taxes, the government will find you. Okay, and somehow we can't find the missing kids, or we don't even know how many are missing. So they know how much you owe in taxes every year. They know what you're driving. They know what you post on social media. So where are the children? Do they know how many? And do they know where they're at now, the children? And that tells you all you need to know about government priorities. And let me end with this. The Bible is very clear. Jesus didn't say protect the powerful. Okay, so all of you bureaucracy defenders, DCFS, they're just overworked. They need more money. No, all the overworked worked caseworkers, and none of it justifies losing children and then not knowing how many you're missing. They've got an exorbitant amount of money funneled into DHS. Maybe we should stop funding illegal immigration nonprofits to the tune of millions of dollars, and we should take that money and instead put it into the DCFS, which is a sub-agency kind of the DHS. But here's what Jesus said. He didn't say excuse the system, protect the powerful. He said, whoever welcomes one of these little children in my name welcomes me. That's Matthew 18:5. He also warned that if anyone causes these little ones, those who believe in me, to stumble, it would be better for them to have a large millstone hung around their neck and thrown into the sea. So, like, drowned, right? So, yeah. Shame on these agencies who are not tracking this. And I hope that this bill gets passed, and I hope that DCFX actually follows through. That's a whole nother thing. Say the bill gets passed and there's this mandate on DCFS. Will they actually follow through on that mandate through the legislature? I don't know. But it's a good bill, right? Like simple data tracking. And then every year the General Assembly can kind of review that data and take the necessary steps to hold people accountable for the missing children if it's an exorbitant amount like 193 each year. That's a crazy amount. One is too many, but if it was 10, that's more understandable than 100. So, yeah, big flaws in DCFS. So let's get to another story. I'm going to wrap up the show with this one. Smash that like button, share this out with your friends, subscribe to the channel. Let's talk about Heather Abrahamson. Okay, so unclear what she would do if somebody tried to run her over with a car, but we can almost be certain that she would assume her life was in danger. Okay. If somebody tried to run you over with a car, you're going to assume that your life is in danger. Okay. It's a car. People don't survive when they get hit by cars, typically. Or they're severely injured. Most people think that their life is in danger if somebody had tried running them over. So, however, she found the audacity here to claim that this federal officer who's nearly run over, well, not even nearly, he was run over. There was internal bleeding. You can hear the thunk in several videos. It sounded like it hurt. Okay. He was, in fact, she says that he was not, in fact, in danger. Okay. She had the audacity to claim that federal officer who was run over by Renee Good was not in danger. Okay. And she also believed it was appropriate to go ahead and tell her classroom full of students that he was in the wrong, despite there being facts. The guy suffered internal bleeding. There was bullet holes in the front shield that indicate that he was in front of the car when he shot her. Okay. Shot at her at least the one time. Okay. She did not factor in the facts before giving her assessment of the situation in front of a classroom of students. So Heather was filmed. She was filmed arguing with a student over the shooting of Renee Good, claiming that the officer was not in danger. And she also told the student that just because you're alive doesn't mean you're intelligent. Okay, and you can hear it in the video, which we will get to. Which is true. Yeah, just because you're alive doesn't mean you're intelligent, as evidenced by the fact that she's alive. And she still, made this attempt to indoctrinate her students as if she knows a thing or two about a thing or two. Okay, so she attempted to indoctrinate her students without really factoring in the facts of the case. And she was indoctrinating that, like, it's evident that you're not intelligent, lady. And to say that to a student, like, just because you're alive doesn't mean that you're intelligent. Like, just a kind of nasty person, right? To say that to a student. You have authority over that student. But I just want to get to a point in this country, and I don't know, let me know in the comment section what you think. I just want to get to a point in this country where we can acknowledge that murder is wrong, regardless of your political beliefs. Attempted murder is wrong. Running people over with your car is wrong. I just want to get to a point in that country. Like, you might not agree with the policy or the law, the immigration law. There's a person in this situation, the Renee Good situation. One person was trying to enforce the law. The other person has a political ideology behind that law and feelings about that law, and attempted to obstruct lawful duties and then acted recklessly with a deadly weapon and tried to ram the one person who was enforcing the law with their car. Okay, so one of these things, the guy enforcing the law, is morally permissible, and not just permissible, applaudable. Okay, applaudable, commendable. So the other is not. Okay, one of these actions was not morally permissible or morally commendable. Okay, so you do the math. Okay, which one was doing the morally right thing? Which one was not? And she might have thought she was doing the morally right thing because of her political ideologies and biases towards the law. But you can have feelings about the law, but the law is the law. Okay, and until that law is changed, the enforcement of that law is morally just or morally good. So this teacher, she spouted her ideological viewpoints on her students. Take a listen.
Should have been to go like this if he was really afraid. Your job as a police officer is to de-escalate.
A split second.
No. No.
Yes.
No.
Yes.
She was not
You're arguing right now. What are you doing? You're arguing right
because watch the video. He was not in
Just
danger.
because you're yelling doesn't mean you're winning an argument. Just because you're yelling doesn't mean you're winning. Guys.
Yeah. Just because you're alive doesn't mean you are intelligent.
It sucks that she got shot, but it's a split. You have a split second.
Yeah.
You're gonna take that? She just called you stupid.
Wow. Oh man. Like, can we get the kids to read and write? Right? I mean, I just don't get it. This teacher obviously is not an educator. She is a leftist activist who is masquerading as an educator. I do want to share this post. So outside of the video you saw there, you'll be able to see the post of Heather, the teacher, here, and I'll just read from it. This was a post in 2022. She's a leftist activist. So, Becker's social media kit. Educators believe schools should be a place where all students can come to class feeling safe, supported, valued, and learn lessons they need to live and need in a multicultural, multiracial world. Unfortunately, some Becker, so Becker is the school here, school board members and leaders are trying to prevent those things from happening by passing policies to silence educators and stop students from receiving accurate and honest lessons about the role of racism, gender, and civil rights in our country. The school board already passed a communications policy that infringes on educators' First Amendment rights. And on Monday, August 1st at 6:30 p.m., they are poised to approve a policy that bans teaching or promoting inherently divisive content. On Monday, please hit Twitter, Facebook, and other social media outlets to show Becker educators you have their backs, blah, blah, blah. This is activism right here. Her post, it's clear that she is a leftist activist masquerading as an educator. And, teachers have the right to their political beliefs. Now, there is a law where teachers, the First Amendment, hang on, let me look this up because I forget what it's called. You have First Amendment rights, but it's limited in a public school setting. They're limited because while they have strong speech rights as citizens on public issues outside of school, their on-the-job classroom speech are part of their official duties, receives little protection. Okay, this allows schools to regulate curriculum and instructional content to ensure consistency and serve educational missions without with limits applied when speech is disruptive or undermines the school's goals. So you have limited speech because you're in a government role. And there's a name for this law. It's federal law. I don't have it at the tip of my tongue right now, but there's limitations on teachers while they're in their public office role. Okay, she has her rights to her political beliefs, but you got to leave it out of the classroom. And, you know, I can agree that with Renee Good and the shooting of Renee Good, very tragic situation. She shouldn't have been there. Shame on her spouse. That's my opinion. My spouse would not allow me to, or would not encourage me to jaywalk. Okay. There's been times where my husband's like, oh, no, we're going to wait for the sign to turn, you know, with the white walking man, you know, and I'm like one of those where like, okay, no cars are coming. Let's go. Like, it's tragic. She shouldn't have been there. Shame on the organization she allegedly had ties to, according to the DHS. ICE watch groups, rapid response teams. Shame on Governor Tim Walz for not de-escalating. It's the cop's job, you know, in the video you heard her, the teacher, it's the cop's job to de-escalate. Yeah, I mean, I guess maybe in certain situations, but it's also the cop's job to public safety. You know, de-escalation is not the primary goal. It's public safety. And, you know, had he been run over or all these other enforcement officers, like this woman, for all he knew, could have been on a rampage and mowing down people all throughout the community. There were bystanders, you know, if she was willing to run him over, how many other people was she willing to run over? You know, and in that split second, you've got to make a call. His primary goal is to stay alive like everybody else, right? Defense, self-defense, his primary goal. But de-escalation, not the primary goal. Public safety and, you know, making sure that people are safe is the goal, okay, of officers, the primary goal. Now that can take the form of de-escalation, but sometimes you have to use deadly force, okay, in order to secure a situation. It's tragic, okay, but that doesn't mean you blame the guy who did what he believed he had to do to save his life and to save the lives around him, okay? Perhaps you should blame the people who radicalized Renee Good. Perhaps you should blame the people who encouraged Renee Good to drive, who are caught on tape telling her to drive away and evade law enforcement when she's told repeatedly to get out of the vehicle. And, you know, the sooner this teacher realizes that, hey, maybe it was the people Renee Good surrounded herself with who got her into that situation that ultimately cost her life, the sooner she realizes that, the better off she and I think her students would be, and that it's not the fault of the guy who's just trying to save his life and the life of possibly others that day on that street. So, you know, she was acting erratically, smiling, she was antagonizing ICE agents prior to that. I mean, who knows what she would have done? She could have run over everybody on the street, up the street, not even the ICE agents. If she was willing to run him over, why would he not believe that she was going to run other people over? Right? All right. Smash that like button, share this out with your friends. That is going to do it for us today. Good morning, Cat and Chat. Appreciate you being here. God is in control. President Donald Trump is a tool to serve God's will, just like Cyrus the Great and King David was. Yes, I definitely believe that this is all in God's timing and plan. You know, taking back America, I think that there's going to be a great revival. When America's strong, the rest of the world is strong. So yeah, definitely Donald Trump is a tool that God is using, much like King David. And yeah, I love that comment. All right, smash that like button. We'll be back tomorrow morning. Bye-bye. Love you so much. See you soon.